What's the one thing you can do right now such that by doing it, it will make everything else with picking your skin or pulling your hair easier? Okay, so here's the idea. Like, we have a million things, right? We feel like we have so many things to do and everything seems maybe equally important. And so we just kind of get overwhelmed, or we don't know what to do, or we do what's easiest, or we do just in order or something. But we need to get into the habit of figuring out what this book teaches. This book is amazing. The One Thing by Gary Keller with Jay Papasan. Okay, this book is great, and we're going to talk specifically about what the one thing is with respect to skin picking and hair pulling. But first, like, what is the one thing and what is the question? So there's a clarifying question that they teach in this book. And that question is, what is the one thing I can do now that's going to make everything else easier or unnecessary? And so we have to figure that one thing out, because that's going to help. That's the priority, right? If you can figure out just one thing that's going to make everything easier, oh my gosh, let's do that one thing, right? And the idea further than that is that, you know, that one thing will be like a domino, right? Pushing over the next domino and the next and the next. And some cool things I learned about dominoes in this book are that one domino can knock over another one that's something like 60% heavier. I actually forgot the exact statistic, but a much bigger domino. And then that one can knock over a much bigger domino. So you really accumulate power in this way by thinking constantly like, okay, what's the one thing? And then that like causes everything else to get easier and easier. And picking can be like that, and I have a lot of examples, okay? So for your possible one things, because, you know, if we're working on this, why do like a crap load of stuff at a time when we're just gonna get overwhelmed and give up, okay? So it's much more important to implement one thing and make it a habit, you know, if we see that it's working, obviously. And then when that's a habit, if we still need to do something else, figure out, okay, what's the next one thing that's going to give me the biggest impact, and etc. Okay, so figuring out your one thing. So a few one things that I've noticed for people. So your diet can be the one thing. If you have a really crappy diet, or if you're eating a lot of sugar, or even just a moderate amount of sugar, cutting the sugar out can make everything easier, and just cuts down on picking so much that, you know, other things might be unnecessary to do, you know, depending on how severe your skin picking is. Or to make that more specific, you might want to say your one thing is planning your meals and going food shopping when you're giving up sugar, because you're going to need to replace certain things. You know, let's say you have a granola for breakfast or something that has sugar. You got to plan something else. Exercise could be your one thing, because exercise increases your energy level, it improves your mood, and it decreases fidgetiness and anxiety. That could be your one thing. You know, if you find that you're just picking because you're just in a bad mood or you don't have the energy, exercise might be the thing that reduces the picking the most for you, and also gives you the motivation to do other things. See, a lot of habits are like, once we make these positive things a habit, they have what they call in the book a halo effect. Like, they spill over into other good habits as well. We start to, you know, maybe eat better and sleep better if we're exercising. And when you eat better and when you sleep better, you tend to pick less. So it just like, it's a positive cycle rather than like a negative, what do they call that? I don't know, just going, you know, instead of a vicious cycle, it's like an uplifting cycle. So exercise could be one. And if exercise is too big a step, maybe your one thing is getting your gym clothes on. And once you do that, once you have your exercise clothes on and your sneakers or whatever, you're more likely to actually go out the door and do it. A positive log. So not just keeping track of your picking and the circumstances around it, but actually keeping track of what are the positive things you're doing each day that you've learned, maybe from my book or something that or from personal experience, that you've learned to decrease your picking. Okay, so that's a positive log. And I have a tool for that as well. The Freedom Companion, my book, The Freedom Companion, might be your one thing because it reminds you of a whole bunch of other things that could be useful. And it's like, it gets you in positive mindset. It's a whole bunch of things that, dominoes that could be knocked over with that one. If you just make that one habit of, writing in your Freedom Companion every day. Okay, what else? Could be waking up early. One of my clients, she realized what her next one thing was going to be was to just wake up a little earlier because she found she needed time for using some light therapy and for meditation, that kind of thing. And it just it was a bad cycle when she just woke up right in time to, run out and go work. But if she took some more time at home to do positive self-care, she set everything up, in her mind to have a better day. So that could be your one thing, something like that. Another thing that could be your one thing is covering the mirror. Literally, that can be a game changer for so many people. And if you're picking at your face, or think along those lines, if there could be a game changer for you with your picking regarding blocking yourself from doing it. Another possible one thing could be making a new routine when you arrive home. So a lot of people come home way overstimulated and use picking to get into a calm and focused state. And I'm thinking of one of my old clients who, that was the only time she picked was it was instantly when she came home. She kind of needed some time. She had a very stressful job and her husband was home straight away, and she just ended up going into the bathroom. I mean, she kind of realized she was just needing some time alone. So she would go into the bathroom and end up picking. But once she covered the mirror and replaced that behavior, the picking behavior, with she was using dry brushing. She was doing some dry brushing and then some tapping, emotional freedom technique. And that, just taking the 10 minutes for some positive self-care and some centering, sensory, just good alone time there. She was fine, okay? And then later on she uncovered the mirror and she was fine, as long as she still took her time for her self-care then. So, I hope these examples are triggering a lot of thoughts for you, and you're figuring out, okay, what could be just one thing that you do? I mean, you might jot down some more things because later on, you might have one more thing that you need. But if you're overwhelmed, it always helps to just start with the one thing that's going to make the most impact. Another one thing for people could be getting a coach, okay? So this is me. I'm the Stop Skin Picking coach. I do help people, and it is very hard to do by yourself. So that could be your one thing right now. Might be, reaching out. Go to my website, stopskinpickingcoach.com, and contact me. I mean, that could be your one thing, because from what you hear, it sounds like there could be a lot of things, but we always, want to tackle one thing at a time. You're going to be more successful and less overwhelmed and less inclined to give up and feel hopeless. Okay, so again, I highly recommend this book, not just applied to skin picking, but applied to everything. I mean, I'm using it. It's part of the reason why I'm focused on YouTube right now, because I figured that YouTube would be the thing that would give me the most impact as far as reaching people. Have you figured out your one thing right now? Please share in the comments, and remember to like the video if you liked this, and subscribe if you haven't.